Good evening everyone. Welcome viewers to CEC Gurukul Live. I am Dr. Renu Tomar. Today we are going to talk about provisions for community participation under SSA and RTE. Now, first of all, let us talk about that why are we talking about SSA and RTE. Then we should talk about that what is the importance of community participation when it comes to education policy, implementation of education policies, or educating students so that we can have development in the country. We are educating students so that we can have development in the country, and for that we seek community participation, because it's a proven fact that until and unless we have community participating as one of the important factor in planning, implementation and monitoring of educational plans, we cannot have the kind of results we expect from those policies. Now, first of all, let us talk about RTE. Why did RTE came into being? Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2019. It came for the provisions to ensure that there is meaningful participation of key stakeholders. Who are the key stakeholders? Key stakeholders are the parents, the teachers, the community, the local level leaders, as well as the administrators. So, we wanted that everybody should come together to ensure right to education. That was the basic reason why RTE came into being. Now, let us talk about SSA, that is Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. What has Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan to do with right to education? Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan is a significant tool to implement RTE. Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan is there to create the structures. By structures, what I mean is that the physical structures, along with that planning as to implement the education policies. So, at the block level, at the village level, at the school level, whenever we talk about creating structures, Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan become responsible for it. It engages all the stakeholders for the educational activities. That means the community is involved for bringing positive social change for socially excluded individuals and communities. Now, let us talk about what is socially excluded individuals and communities, and why is it so important for us to be considerate about them. As a nation, as the educated people, as the policy framers, as the educationists, it becomes our key responsibility to facilitate the people, the education for the people who are not able to get the education on their own. For that, community needs to come together and arrange in such a manner that those children are having access to education. For this, the first step to that would be to campaign to bring the children to schools. And friends, all of us, those who are in the education sectors, know that it is the most difficult task, and the outcome of the children from the most backward area or backward communities coming and getting educated, and the resultant of that is the most beautiful thing which all of us can imagine. So, now let us talk about what we are going to talk about in this lecture. First of all, we are going to discuss what is the importance of community participation in education. We are also going to talk about that how local and grassroots level bodies like village education committees, parent teacher association and school management committees will play the key role in right to education. We will also be talking about how the community can plan and manage education. We would also be trying to discuss that how the community can play and is playing the meaningful role in designing and implementing processes of school activities. In this case, friends, we will also be talking about certain case studies which which have been taken up by certain research scholars regarding engagement of local bodies for Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan as to implement RTE 2019. So, getting back to what we were talking about, that why community participation is important. What do we mean when we say that community needs to participate? That means all the members of the community needs to participate. All the members of the community means the parents, the local leaders, the administrators, the schools, the teachers, the educated people in those community. All those have to come together as to plan and manage a school for the improvement of quality as well as providing the education to the kids who are not able to manage to go to the school. So, community participation, whenever we talk about it, is principally in two forms, informal and formal. Now, friends, how can community participate in informal way and how can community participate in formal way? To talk about the informal way, that means that when the community provides the piece of land for the school building, may it be provided by the Panchayat Raj, may it be provided by the individual who has land and who wants to contribute in educating the children in the locality. So, the land may be contributed, the books may be contributed, the material, the teaching learning material may be contributed. So, the contribution by the community in any form, so that the education can be managed, the school can be started and managed for the children who are not generally eligible. I would say eligible because they belong to economically deprived class, because they are the children who are not born lucky in a way that their parents cannot afford education. For them, education is a luxury. For those children, it becomes responsibility of the community to provide them education. Now, friends, we all talked about the role of the community as a whole. Now, let us talk about that how the community in particular will play the role. In particular means we will also like to talk about the role of various agencies which we have discussed. The agencies like Panchayat, the agencies like administrator, the agencies like educated people in the community. So, that also need to be discussed, and how they can ensure that the children go to the school and they are able to get the education which we want them to get to, so that they can also become economically contributor in the development of the country, and they can also become satisfied person in their life. Because friends, all of us agree on the fact that education not only takes up the individual, that means that not only contribute in the progression or growth or development of the individual, but it also contributes in the progress and development of the nation. So, that is why it is so important for a nation to ensure education for all the children who are of the age to go to the school. Today, RTE or Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan become more important because in the new education policy, we are planning to extend it. The age level which used to be 6 to 14 in RTE and which is presently implemented as 6 to 14, that is being extended both the way. Like we want the children from 1st to 12th should be not allowed but should be eligible, and it is the responsibility of the nation and the community to provide education to such children who are in class 1 till they reach class 12. So, because we are extending the encompass of the RTE, so that is why it becomes more important that today we talk about Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan and RTE implementation in the community by various sectors. Now let us talk about how can community participate formally. Community would participate formally through various agencies like village panchayat. Friends, it's duty of the village panchayat to ensure education to the children, all the children there in the village. Through then we have the village education committee, we have the ward education committees who are responsible for implementing the education in such a manner that all the children who are in the age group of being in the school should be there in the school, ensuring that they are in the school, ensuring that they don't drop out, ensuring that they enjoy education in such a manner that they benefit from it in the long run. So, it being the responsibility of the community, it becomes very important that both formally as well as informally community participates and it performs the duties which it is supposed to perform. Let us talk about how does parent teacher association help, or how does school management committees are responsible. Parent teacher association and school management committees are framed in the school for monitoring and supervision of the school management. For this, it is a rule that PTA and school management committees have to meet on regular basis and see to it that how if they are progressing on the agendas which were decided in the beginning of the academic year. So, in the beginning of the academic year, the certain agendas and responsibilities are decided by SMC and PTA, and accordingly that have to be followed. So, follow up of those activities is being done, and apart from that, it is also seen that the whatever was decided in the beginning of the academic year, that is being followed. So, this is something which SMC has to perform. Now, friends, let us be practical about the fact that we do have all the monitoring system in place. May it be PTA, may it be SMC, but it has been seen that despite having everything in place, they are not performing the kind of duties and responsibilities they are supposed to. That is why Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan becomes so important. Why Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan was begun? Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan was Government of India's flagship for achieving UEE, universalization of elementary education. So, when the government decided to begin Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, the key agenda was universalization of elementary education. SSA was implemented almost in all the state government. It became responsibility of all the state government and the entire country to address the need of around 192 million children in 1.1 million habitations. So, this was the kind of a responsibility which SSA began with, and it is performing. That means this is the statistics which should be surprising to all of us, as well as make us think that how it is to be attained, how the education of such a large group of children is to be attained. So, when we talk about SSA, this program was opened so that school in those habitations wherever there were not school, they could be established. That means the one of the target of SSA was to provide a school in those habitations where there was no schooling facilities. Another objective of SSA was to provide teachers and teachers training to the teachers who are already engaged, that is in service training to the teachers, so that they can further develop teaching learning material, and they can develop their own skills to become better teacher and become better performer as far as education is concerned. SSA had special focus on girl education, and SSA had special focus on children with special needs. SSA was also and was to ensure that the Panchayati Raj institutions and the school management committees are being run in proper manner. PTA, Parent Teacher Association or Mother Teacher Association were meeting time to time and performing the kind of duties they are supposed to. So all those were the key agendas of SSA, and SSA had key responsibility to provide strength to RTE Act 2009, the act which makes education a fundamental right for every child between the ages of 6 and 14. So SSA had to cater to this particular act. It had to ensure that the children go to school and they remain in school. That means SSA also had to control dropout rate of the children. So it was not just taking the child to the school, but also maintaining the status quo and also ensuring that the child who is going over there learns something. So all these were the key agendas of SSA. For this, what the government also gave the provision of government school providing free education. Apart from that, RTE also made it mandatory for even private school to ensure that 25% of the total enrollment is from the economically weaker class. So these kind of provisions were made by our policy framers and the legal agencies to ensure that the children from the weaker economic areas are able to go to the school. Apart from that, government also provided for midday meal, the free uniform. Apart from that, the girls were provided with scholarship, the minorities were provided scholarship. These things were done to ensure that the dropout rate is controlled, and the children who for a family are most of the time earning members, they remain in school, and the family is also satisfied on the aspect that they are not investing money on the education of those children, and they are also able to get something out of educating those children. So the scholarship, the fees, the uniform, all those were made free compulsorily for the reason that there is no economic burden on the parents of the children, because only that is the only way to ensure that the child remains in the school. Otherwise, the parents who are struggling to meet both the ends meet, who are struggling to get bread for their family, for the 2 meals for the family, they will not be able to send the child to the school. Another challenge which we had and we still have is that making parents understand the importance of education, because usually the children we are talking about, they are the first learners in their family. So because they are first learners in the family, it is very difficult to make their parents understand, their family understand the importance of education, or how will they benefit out of educating the child, or how will child benefit due to that education. So they were the key challenges in front of the government. That is why government thought of taking education to the grassroots level, and for that this Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan began. That means all the grassroots agencies were involved. The state was only providing the required funds, but who was responsible for ensuring that those funds are being utilized in a proper manner for the enactment of the RTE Act for Sarv Shiksha as in the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan? It was the community, it was the local level administration, it was the local governance. That is why in case of Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, the role of panchayat, the role of local level governance, the local political leaders become so important. It was also ensured that there is a school within 3 kilometers. So, this was also ensured by the government that there should be a primary school within a walking distance of 1 kilometer for the primary students, and for the upper primary the school should be there within the 3 kilometers. The government also ensured, as I told you, that the private school also provide admission to the children of the poor family from the economic weaker classes. So, all those provisions were made by the government, keeping in view the fact that there is a huge gap between the educated and uneducated. There is a challenge between the society, the governance, the nation, as to provide the literacy to the maximum people of the society. So, for ensuring all that, apart from providing those fundamental things and the structural thing, the teachers also needed to be provided. How to provide the teachers? It became so important that the teachers are provided in service training, and they are also equipped as to create teaching learning material, as to manage the curriculum in their own in as per the requirement of that community and society, so that the children not only remain in the school for getting the certification, but also remain in the school for getting advantage of having learned something which he or she can use. So, these kind of provisions were made by the government when the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan began. Apart from that, the RTE Act also made it mandatory that the migratory families who were migrating from one place to another, the children of those families need not provide any kind of a certification, so that it was the school had to give admission to such children without having any certificate. And if there was some kind of a gap between the formal education and the level of education of the child, so the bridge courses were provided, the special training were provided, the provisions for the skill educations were also made, so that the children up to the age of the appropriate level are educated. The 3 R's which we usually talk about, the basic arithmetic, the writing skill, the children should be equipped with 3 R's in the life. So, for ensuring it, that the teachers were also provided, and the agenda of the government was that there should be a provision for a teacher for every 30 children at primary level. But friends, as all of us know that ours is a developing nation and we don't have so much resources. So, despite having made many efforts, in every state or every district, the government was not able to fulfill this particular level of requirement. We could not have so many teachers as the teachers were required, and we as a developing nations are working upon all those things. Apart from it, the most important aspect which nowadays even the government is talking about is having toilets for girls and boys. So, that was also one of our most important key agenda which was given to the local level governance or local level administration, to ensure that the children who are going to the school, they don't have problem. Apart from the physical access, the RTE also tried to ensure the social access. That means there should not be any kind of exclusionary practices in the school. Basically, it was seen that there are exclusionary practices in the school based upon caste, class, gender and special needs. So, that gap had to be fulfilled. From there on, the other concepts of the school education came when we talked about that it is mandatory for all the schools to take students in irrespective of their gender, caste, class or special needs. From there on, the other concepts of education also were developed upon, that the children should not be demarked, and it should be ensured that all the children are getting the same kind of a treatment. May it be because the child may be differing even because of the special need, but still the children should not be treated as different from each other. From here on, let us talk about that what it needed. It needed two things: one, school mapping, another, social mapping. What do we understand by school mapping? School mapping means that deciding that where school should be set up. How would we do it? We will do it by taking into consideration the number of children in that area of the age group who needs to be in the school. School mapping also requires to take into consideration not just the population of that area, but also the physical resources which are available in that area. So, accordingly, we have to do the school mapping. As friends, we talked about that it is mandatory to provide a primary school in 1 kilometer to every child. That every child should have access to a primary school within 1 kilometer. Similarly, the upper primary level should be within the reach of the child in 3 kilometer, because that is the only distance at which we can expect a small child to walk. So, school mapping exercise would ensure that we have a school as per our requirement, and the social mapping will help us to provide us statistics or data related to the socio-economic backward groups which need to be enrolled in the school. So, whenever we talk about having a school in particular area, in particular district, in particular ward, both school mapping is to be done and both social mapping is to be done. Social mapping, so that along with the physical structure of the school, creating the physical structure of the school, we also are working upon ensuring that the child will come to the school, because the mind frame of the parents is the most challenging for any administrative body to get the child to the school. For that, community is needed. For that, civil organizations are needed. For that, NGOs are needed. They would identify such children and help in their enrollment. How would they do it? They will provide they will become a bridge between the school and the child. For that, informally, teachers can also come forward. Teachers who basically are living in certain communities, they can talk to the people in their community who have say in the community, so that they can influence the parents to send their children to the school. So, teachers can be a key player in that particular role, bringing child to the school. The local leaders can be key player. The educated people in those communities can be key player. So, all those people who have say in the society or are socially well connected can be the key resources or key player in bringing children to the school. Apart from that, the local level agencies, that is the administration, the role of administration becomes very important, because they are the one who are aware of inter and intra migration. So, because when the families are migrating, the dropout of the children is a usual practice. The family is moving from one area to another in search of job or search of employment. The child is removed from the school and taken from one area to another. So, making it mandatory for the family to put the child into the school. For that, it is very important that the social agencies, the administrative agencies, the socio-political agencies all come together and keep an eye on the inter and intra migration. This is what we mean by mapping, social mapping. Social mapping also means that we map that how many children in what age group are to be inducted in which class. That means matching the appropriate class with the age of the child is also to be needed. So, this is also a social mapping is also to be done by the agencies who are involved in starting a school or maintaining a school, and this is a massive and complex task. Why is it complex task? Because getting to know that to what level, what education level the child is of, because usually it is seen that the mental age of the child may differ from the biological age. The learning level of the child may be of very low level, so that has to be matched with the appropriate class. And if there is huge gap, suppose there is a 10-year-old child, but he is not capable of even writing the basic alphabets, that means then we will have to provide bridge programs, bridge courses to educate those children so that they can go to the formal education. Friends, when we talk about Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, that means we are not just talking about formal education setup, we are also talking about informal education setup. Informal education setup means the non-government organizations who are involved in educating children. Informal setup means the people who are socially active and they want to contribute in educating the children of the community. Informal setup also mean the local level leaders who take interest in the progression, development and education of their communities. So, informal setup plays more important role than the formal setup, and in fact, it will not be far-fetched to say that in formal setup also, that is the structured school also, the informal interest of the teachers, of the principal, of the administrators plays bigger role to get the child to the school and retain the child into the school and educating him in a proper manner. What do we understand by when we say that educating the child to the proper manner? That means the educating child to make him a potential earner, because that is the basic task of education. Not just literacy, that we don't want the child to become, every child to become eligible for service sector. We also want the children to become eligible for all other sectors. We want the child to become a better farmer. We want the child to become a better entrepreneur. So, for all those agendas, education needs to cater. So, just book knowledge or book information will not help. So, that is why people support and ownership is needed. That is why the child who is going to the school needs to have access to the society and the professional, the various professions which are being practiced by the people in those societies. So, so when we are talking about education, we are not simply talking about the classroom learning. We are also talking about education beyond classroom learning. So, that is why when we talk about educating the child in the school or beyond the school, the role of people who are engaged in different professions becomes very important. It is usually seen that a farmer would be able to teach the child in a better manner than a teacher who is teaching from the books. A farmer who knows the grassroots realities, the grassroots problems and his expectation and the market to which he is going to sell off his crops better than the teacher, he would be much better resource than the books which are available to the children. So, at times teachers need to utilize such resources, such people should be brought to the school, and the children should also be taken to the field trips. Field trip does not mean only for enjoyment, field trip also means for learning. Children needs to be taken to factories so that they can understand that how the real work is done, how the things are being created and how they are being marketed, how the farmer is sowing, how the farmer is cutting his crops and how it can be improved in the long run. So, all those things become very important aspects of the education, and these things become so important that society, if society is not contributing in it, then we will not be able to provide the right education to the child. So, that is why we say that people support and ownership is most important thing whenever we talk about educating children. Friends, as we talked about that whenever we talk the strata or the population about which we are talking about here are they are the major chunk, but they are the one who are sending their children first time. That means the children who are going to the school, they are the first learners. So, keeping all those things in mind, we have to orient the education. Only then Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan can be vehicle to RTE Act. Otherwise, Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan would be a failure. So, whenever we talk about Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, that means Shiksha for everyone. It also means Shiksha by everyone. That means education is for every child, and education is also for anybody who wants to educate oneself. That means here we are also talking about adult education. We are also talking about the people who have not been to the school, but they want to educate themselves. Having night school for such people, and later on getting them access to the bodies which are providing formal education, like open schooling. So, through open schooling, providing them access to the people who either never went to the school or were forced to give up education due to certain factors. So, all these are key agendas of the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. Now, let us talk about the various bodies which play very important role in Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, may it be the states or duties. We have VEC, that is the Village Education Committee. We have PTA, Parents Teacher Association. We have MTA, Mother Teacher Association. We have SMC, SMC means School Management Committees. We have many bodies in different states and different UTs for ensuring that there is community participation in education of the children. Through these agencies or through these bodies which are mandatory for all the schools to have, we are trying to ensure that there is participation of the community in the education of the children. So, these are the key provisions which the government has introduced, but it becomes duty of the community to ensure that these bodies are effectively working, because friends, it has been seen that may it be Mother Teacher Association, may it be the Parents Teacher Association, they are not even meeting once in a year when they are supposed to meet once in a month. So, they are not meeting and they are not discussing, and even if they are discussing, they are not discussing the key issues of the school, rather just the signature, we would say the formalities are being done by the parents and the teachers, the signatures are going on, and they are not even going through. The researchers who have done the researches on Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, and they have tried to study the role of these particular bodies in the schools, they have come out with very disheartening results. The results have been such that these bodies never met, but the signatures were there on the paper, and there were results that these bodies met. But when the parents were asked or the mothers were asked that what was the key agendas which they decided upon, they did not know. They just said that we signed it, but we don't know what was in the paper. The teacher wrote and we signed. The principal gave us a paper and we just have signed it. So, the most important aspect which we need to understand, the society needs to understand, the nation needs to understand, is that the provisions which have been provided to these bodies, the responsibilities which have been provided to these bodies, they are done honestly and openly. There are few case studies in which it has been found that the school or the community is doing very well, and the reason for those schools doing so well or those communities being so satisfied with the functioning of those schools, formal or informal, has been because the community was playing a key role, very participatory role in ensuring the education of the children. The community was ensuring that every child goes to the school. The community was ensuring that if the school cannot provide books to the children, then the society does that. It is not such a huge task. It can also be provided by the children who belong to well-off, economically better off group. So, the donating of books is something which can be done by the community, and buying of books by the community is also something which can be easily done. So, village education committees in those sectors or in those villages have been found to playing very important role. To such an extent that even if the schools did not have resources, the community came forward to get the schools repaired. Community came forward to provide the basic furniture in the school. Community came forward to plant trees in the school. Community also came forward to give scholarship to the students who were doing well, and community also came forward as to share their real experiences with the children of the school, so that the children benefits. So, wherever the community has come forward not only to supervise but also to provide the added advantage to the functioning of the school, there the schools have done really well. And in fact, it is responsibility of the community to supervise that if the books are being given to the students, if the midday meal is proper. So, who will ensure that? In the research studies, it has also been noticed that there were certain villages in which the sarpanch was so active and so responsible that he himself used to go and taste the midday meal before the meal was given to the children. He himself used to supervise that the funds which is being provided to the school, they are being utilized well by the school level administration. The books are being provided to the students as per their requirement. So, if in those societies or in those villages or in those wards it was seen that the schools were really doing very well, in such societies it was also seen that the alumni of the schools were also very responsible, and they were also coming forward to do something for the children of those school from which they have passed out. They also worked for improving the quality of education, and they were also working for providing the funds to the schools or the material things for the schools, so that the school can function well. As far as parents is concerned, the most of the research studies which have been conducted as to study the role of the parents, it was seen that the most of the parents were from the labor classes, and they did not understand anything. In fact, whenever the researchers discussed with the parents, they were not able to come out with any responses, because they said we didn't understand whatever the teacher told us, we did not understand whatever the principal told us, but yes, our child is happy, so that is why we are happy. So most important thing which is to be taken into consideration is that the child is happy. How would we ensure that the child is happy in the education setup? Child can only be happy if we are reorienting the education as per the need of the child. We are trying to get rid of the differences on the basis of caste, communities, and we are also ensuring that there are programs for the children of disadvantaged group to be in the school and be treated equally. So the most difficult job which the government has to look into is that ensuring that the child is happy, and of course government or the policy framers or the people who are responsible for providing provisions cannot ensure that. This can only be ensured by the people who are working or functioning at the grassroots level. Who are they? The local level people. Who they are the generally, if we will talk about VEC or we will talk about the associations of the school, who are the responsible members in those schools? Usually the chairperson is the sarpanch, and apart from sarpanch it's mandatory to have two other also people members from the panchayat. So the people from the panchayat can ensure it, the school teachers can ensure it, the educated people of the community can ensure it. We cannot ask the parents to ensure it. Friends, this is the most important thing which we should be looking into, that here the parents who are living in slums cannot ensure education of their children. In fact, they can't even understand the importance of education of their children. So we will have to help them realize the importance of the education. We will have to ensure the happiness of the child who is going to the school. We will have to ensure that there is no dropout rate of the child in the school. In this here, when we are talking about the disadvantaged group, the role of NGOs become very important. The non-governmental bodies are the one who provide the bridge between the formal setup and the informal setup. The students or the children who are not, the students who drop out or the children who are not able to go to the school, ensuring their education is being done by the non-government organizations with the help of provisions and support of the government aids. So they ensure that those children are able to educate themselves, because it is seen that at times family does not want to send the child to the school. They say that the child is the earner to them, and getting away the child. In fact, the fact is that the RTE Act makes it mandatory that we have to ensure that the child is there in the school, but still taking the child against the will of the parents to the school will not really give you the kind of a result which we are looking for. All we can do is, as a community, as a society, as a nation, is that we ensure that the child also studies back in his home, and we ensure that the child becomes more interested and the parents become more interested in education of the child rather than those money or those little income which the child is getting for them. So, if we can ensure that the education is more important to the family and the children than that income which the child is getting for them, we would be able to have every child in the school or studying, educating himself or herself, may it be in at home or in the formal setup. So, friends, from the lecture, let me try to talk about the conclusions which we can make on the basis of whatever we talked about. One is that the participation of the community is very important. Another is that community has to ensure the teachers are alert and responsive. Community has to ensure that the funds which are being allocated, they are being properly used. Community has to ensure that the parents also understand the importance of the education, and if needed they can also be given the practical knowledge and skill, so that they also become engaged in the education system. Community can also work upon the curriculum development or orienting the curriculum so that the teaching learning material can be made practical. Community can also ensure that how to contribute in the education, formal as well informal education sector, so that the educational problem of that particular communities are addressed to, may it be the low enrollment, may it be the dropping out of the child, may it be the poor academic performance of the children. So, all these are the key agendas whenever we talk about the community contribution to the children. In all those areas, the community has to involve itself along with the parents, along with the teachers, along with the administrative bodies who are responsible for educating the children. All of them have to come together to ensure these three things. One, that if there is a low enrollment, that is catered to. Second, if there is a dropout rate on the higher side, that is catered to. The dropout rate should be minimized, in fact it should be eradicated completely, and if there is poor academic performance of the children, that is also catered to. So, these are the key areas or key challenges in the front of the community whenever we talk about the community participation in education setup. There are few case studies which have been done in this particular area which I talked about. That how the community, by coming together, ensured that there is low rate of dropout. In fact, there have been communities which worked upon providing the playground to the school, the communities which came together to provide the material resources to the children. There have been certain case studies in which it was found that the panchayat was very active and they really worked upon the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan well, and they catered to all the requirement of that particular district to such an extent that the money which was sanctioned was not just utilized properly, but also the contribution from the community was also utilized properly. To conclude, we would say that just by campaigning for enrollment of the children, just by providing education benefits to the student, just by providing midday meal to the children, we cannot ensure the retention of students in the school. And when we are talking about education, we are not just talking about schools, we are also talking about the informal education of the children. So, we need to ensure, whenever we talk about community participation, we need to ensure that most of the children are there in the school, or they are being prepared through bridge courses to go to the school, or at least appear in some certificate or some 10th class certificate or 12th class certificate, so that they become potential earner in the future. So, friends, Today we talked about how the community can play a key role as far as Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan is concerned or implementation of RTE Act is concerned. So friends, looking forward to meet you again on some other topic. Thanks and have a good day.